Hello, everybody. This is Laura from Healthy Carnivore. I'll just do a little background of who I am. I am a registered nurse. I have been a nurse for over 22 years. Started out with keto in 1991 at 313 pounds. Lost 153 pounds in 9 months. Too fast. But then in 2019, I did switch over to carnivore. And then 3 years later, I did switch over to the lion version of carnivore, which is where I find myself today. It is where I feel my best. I have my best sleep, my best help with like anxiety, depression, all the things I used to have. I don't have those anymore. And I did have them for quite a long time. So, couple decades. So, anyway, that's just a little bit about myself. And so, what I do is every Monday, I come on and I go over some different things relating to diseases, different things that's going on, and the ways that lifestyle can absolutely help cure them. And I'm going to say the word cure because once you have gotten rid of something like a type 2 diabetes, I don't think you would ever go back and eat the way that got you to diabetes again. So to me, if they give you cancer drugs and they kill the cancer, even though there is a chance of that coming back in 5 years, especially if you keep doing the same things that you were doing previously, they still call it cured. So I'm always like, so then so can we, right? Um, hey Tara, hey Crystal. So tonight's topics, it's children. And this is something that I'm sure all of us here will be able to comment and ask questions on. If you feel like, you have any questions, please throw them in there and I will absolutely get to those. And if you see it on replay, same thing, just put them in there. I will always get back to them. It may take a day, but I will get back to them. Okay. Hey, Michelle. So the things that I'm going to go over, and these are United States children. I went over the U.S. population, is what I did, and it's just the top three diseases that are being seen in the United States children. So that's going to be all children that are counted on the census, which is everybody that's here. Um, so the number one most prevalent, which just about broke my heart when I was doing this because I'm like, type 2 diabetes is 100% metabolic disorder from lifestyle. It's not type 1 where you're born and your pancreas and your beta cells do not produce insulin. It is where you have just overdone it and either they don't make enough insulin or you become so insulin resistant that your cells no longer listen to insulin and open up to allow glucose in. So either way, we've damaged it. And unfortunately, I don't know too many children that go out and buy their own food and their own things. They also don't choose their lifestyle. So that falls back on the adults in the room. So type 2 diabetes is a chronic condition. It is where the body becomes resistant to insulin or doesn't produce enough. It leads to very high blood sugars. It is often linked to poor diet, lack of exercise, and obesity. And I would say it would be probably all of the above. Um, yeah, because I mean, even in the little town I live in, we don't have a lot of children in town, but once in a while, there's one group of kids that live on one side. They're always outside playing. They're on bikes, they're on skateboards. I mean, it's like the 70s when you see these kids. I mean, and they're out till dark, like the old days. And then the other side of town, and we don't have a poor side. It's just, this is the town. It's just the way it is. Those kids, you might see them once or twice a year, and they've always got one of these right in their face or an iPad, literally walking outside with an iPad. And I'm like, wow. I mean, it's so sad. And right now, some of these children are still pretty small. So it's not too late. It's never too late, but it's really not too late to get this fixed before it gets bad. So children are increasingly getting type 2 diabetes, which used to be called adult onset diabetes. When I went through nursing school, It wasn't called type 2, it was called adult onset because that's when you saw it show up. Um, it is a combination of factors, mostly due to poor diet, high in processed carbs and sugar, lack of physical activity, and obesity. Some genetics and family history can also play a role, but more than likely it's due to bad habits learned and handed down through families. The rise in a sedentary lifestyle and increased consumption of sugary and processed foods with seed oils are major contributors. And I think if you go back and you can go out to like Chat GPT, you can go to some of those and you can look at the graphs and then overlay them from the 70s to now. And you can add in a couple things like seed oils and high processed foods compared to, not highly processed foods and stuff like that. And it would just be, you'd be amazed at what it shows. It's pretty scary. So, a ketogenic or carnivore diet can help by significantly reducing carbohydrate intake, which then in turn lowers the blood sugar and going to lower the insulin level as well. These diets focus on the high fat, moderate protein, and low carb intake or zero carb in the case of carnivore, close to zero. If you're doing eggs, you're still getting some, doing cheese, you're still getting some. So, which helps stabilize their blood sugar levels and can improve insulin sensitivity, which is something you really want. You want to have insulin sensitivity. Um, there's growing evidence that these diets can be effective in managing and even reversing type 2 diabetes, but they should be implemented under supervision, especially for children. The thing is, and you can go out to Carnivore Family, Rebecca and Louis Ruiz, and they, they've got a huge family, and they are all carnivore. Now they did not switch their kids overnight. They went, all or none the next day when they switched to carnivore. And then they have a plan, and you can go to their YouTube channel, and Rebecca has laid out like this is what we did for however long of duration to get rid of these foods, and just kind of showed how they step by step went through to get their kids eating carnivore, because the kids are, I mean, they're used to getting sugar, they're used to getting the juices, they're used to getting these things. um, but as parents, we need to be the role model, and just doing it ourselves doesn't necessarily, I mean, it does help. I think they do pay attention, but I think if we're doing it and being like, "Hey, this would be good for you too. I want you to feel better. I don't want you to have the trouble that I've had." I think a lot of times if we sit down and have those discussions with our children, they're pretty smart. I think they are very good at listening. This is the number 2 disease. This is also something we never saw. There is zero information before 1995 on fatty liver disease in children. None, zero. Was not such a thing. Wasn't out there. So, let me just check, make sure I don't have any questions. Hey, Darth and Bill and Karen, nice to see you guys. So, fatty liver disease is caused by overconsumption of carbohydrates, sugar, juices, things like that, especially fruits, especially the ones that have been genetically modified, and the juices when you take away, the peel. Um, Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is what they call that. We did have some people who had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and then of course alcohol related liver disease, but that didn't used to show up until people were in their 60s, maybe 70s, that you would see that, whether it was the fatty liver that's not related to alcohol or the alcohol one. It took that long for people to damage their body to that point. Now we're seeing this in children 8 to 10 years old. Um, and I mean, when you have whole centers being built in a town not 45 minutes from me, and it is all about children with diabetes, fatty liver disease, all these things that have happened, and every bit of it is coming from what's in their environment what they're eating and their sedentary lifestyle. It is 100% something that should not have been there. So, um, especially the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease occurs when excess fat builds up in the liver without alcohol being a factor in it. It can lead to inflammation, severe liver damage, and potentially non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, which is called NASH, which can progress into cirrhosis or even liver failure. And this is already happening. Um, you can go out and research, youngest child needing uh, liver, you know, they need a liver because their liver is so damaged that it can't be fixed. Which I would say if they can get on something like this, I think they could at least try until, they can get a transplant. But it's so sad that there's kids that need transplanted organs because of what we allow to be in their diet. We're seeing non alcoholic fatty liver disease in children more than ever due to the increase in obesity, poor diets, highly processed carbs, and sugars, especially fructose, which fructose goes straight to the liver, just like alcohol. So, when you think of fruit juices and, all they've done is take all the sweet, all the juice out of these like apples and cherries and other things like that, there's no fiber, and I'm not a fan of fiber, but it does slow down how fast you convert this stuff into sugar, and so we're just mainlining sugar for them when we do it. Um, so let's see. Yeah, definitely sedentary lifestyles as well. Excessive consumption of sugary drinks, fast food, and processed snacks contribute to insulin resistance, leading to fat accumulation in the liver. A ketogenic or carnivore lifestyle can help reverse non alcoholic fatty liver disease by reducing carbohydrate intake. This will lower insulin level and it will promote fat loss, including liver fat. The fastest I have seen somebody's fatty liver disease turn around was 3 months. And I'm talking where the scan looked like cauliflower was sticking out of it. I mean, you can't even it looked like the surface of the moon was on this, and within 3 months, the next scan, it was smooth. You wouldn't even have believed it was the same person that had the 2 different scans. I mean, it was really crazy, to see it. Let's see. Beer, my favorite carb. Yeah. Well, it is a carb, even the low carb. So ketogenic, like I said, or carnivore would definitely help lower this. The diets will focus on high fat and, like we said, moderate protein and as low as possible of carbohydrates. Um, Encouraging the body to burn fat for the fuel. Studies have shown that low carb diets can effectively reduce liver fat and improve liver function. So, I'm going to give you a quick story of what I saw the other day. I was at a patient's house. He has a housekeeper, and she brings in her 3-year-old daughter. Cute little girl, beautiful, beautiful eyes, chocolate brown eyes, real pretty brown hair. I mean, she's just gorgeous little girl. And she's just bouncing off the walls. I mean, I was like, somebody needs to whoop somebody's behind. I mean, she was throwing stuff and throwing a fit, and she was like, and you know how she calmed her down? She opened up a pack of a Lunchable that had, I think it was M&Ms, peanut M&M, or no, just M&Ms, regular M&Ms. She gave her Capri Sun, which I did the same thing. I've done it when I was younger. Capri Sun, and what was the other thing? She gave her 3 things, and I was just like, "I'll die." "Oh, Cheetos." She goes, "He just keeps acting worse," and I'm like, I said, "It's probably the dyes and the sugar." She goes, "Well, there's no dyes in those," and I'm like, "Yeah, there is. Cheetos don't look like that. That's neon orange. That's not natural." And she was like, "Well, some of this stuff has natural," and I was like, "Natural flavors, natural colorings, doesn't really have to be what we think is natural. They're allowed to put that on the label, and it doesn't really mean jack." So, Anyway, it was just funny because she ended up having to go because this kid was just so unruly. Um, and the patient was like, he was like, "I don't know how many more times I can handle that." And I was like, "That's too bad because, it's nice that she can do her job and bring her child for what she does. But then she's so unruly that this guy's like, I don't think I can keep doing it." Like, he hates it, but it's like, she just was so unmanageable. And I'm sure you've seen this in the store, and my kids did this. Not my daughter so much, but my son. If he didn't get his way in the store, he was a temper tantrum, throwing himself on the floor. Okay. I got down on the floor one time and did the same thing. And then he was like, "Get her away from me." But I'm like, "You're not going to get the candy that's at eye level for the children, the bright colored packages that you're not. You're not getting a toy every time we go someplace. You're not. Sometimes it's okay to say the word no, and it sucks sometimes, but it's just the way it is." Um, let's see. Hey, Terry. Bacon. Bacon. Uh, Bacon is definitely better than beer. Okay, Bill? You probably know that. Um, so another thing is childhood obesity. So childhood obesity and adult obesity are not 100% equal because, not that it's ever the greatest thing, but it doesn't necessarily always mean you're going to have all these diseases and these sicknesses just because you're heavy as an adult, because you've already went through puberty. Your brain is done, being formed. All these things have happened. Not that it's great, but these children are having this hit them before they're ever hitting puberty, before their brains are fully developed. And it's like a chemical composition up inside their brain. And we're expecting them to sit still at school. We're expecting them to remember things, and we're expecting all these things out of them. It's like, we're not putting the work into it, even though it's hard. And I know it is hard. So childhood obesity is now being seen as early as infancy. That is adult causation, and toddlerhood. Because they're not going to a friend's house and eating. Like, when I was a kid, we didn't have nothing because we were poor, but I had a friend that had everything. And I'd go over there and I'd eat a whole bag of black licorice. Made myself sick. But infants and toddlers are not doing that. That is what is being given to them. So, um, with noticeable increases in children as young as 2 to 5 years of age. According to the CDC, about 12.7% of children age 2 to 5 years, and 20.7 of those age 6 to 11 are now being classified as obese. That's just makes me sick. And I was one of those, I wouldn't say obese children until I got into high school, but I was the rarity. I was the one that stood out in my class of 390 some kids. I stood out as the heavy one. Now you go by a grade school and you see the skinnier kid and you're like, "Oh," because now he's the odd man out compared to so many of the others. So, the causation of childhood obesity, of course, is diet, high consumption of processed foods, sugary drinks, and refined carbohydrates. These contribute significantly to weight gain and insulin resistance. Sedentary lifestyle, so increased screen time and decreased physical activity play a major role. So I have a question. Um, I like my phone. I didn't set it up. I don't know. Maybe it's just something that's on there. Every week, it will give you your average of your screen time on your phone. I don't know if this is just automatic. Is it on iPads? Is it on all these things that these kids have? I would love to see what the average screen time is for most kids right now. I'll bet it's several hours a day. And I can remember as a kid, you didn't want to be inside because if you're inside and you say you're bored, you got chores. So you went out and played. You just didn't do that. And my grandma had a TV. We didn't have one, but my grandma had a TV. But the only time you got to watch it was Lawrence Welk and the Mickey Mouse thing. That was it. Walt Disney thing that would come on. I mean, that is really it, and maybe the Rifleman and Bonanza. That's what I got to see. So as a kid, I was like, I'd rather be outside. So environmental and socioeconomic factors, limited access to healthy foods and safe play areas can contribute to poor lifestyle habits. Very true. It's nice that there are people like Dr. Hampton, who is in the Chicago area. I can't remember the name of his health system that he works for. I feel like it starts with an A, like a Via or Event. I can't remember, but he he works very hard to make sure that healthy foods are available, that they're in this area, in specific areas of lower income and the need out there, which I think is great. We need to have those options. So it shouldn't be cheaper for somebody to go to the store to buy a pizza that's got nothing but junk on it than it is for them to buy all the ingredients to make it from scratch. But that's the way it is right now. And it's been that way for about 25 years. So genetics and hormonal factors can predispose children and make them at a higher risk for obesity, but lifestyle choices are a much more significant factor. And like my poor kids, not my son, but my daughter, horrible diet when I was pregnant with her. I drank Mountain Dew. I worked midnight to noon. So to stay awake, I didn't drink coffee. So I just didn't like coffee, but it probably would have been better for me than what I was drinking. I drank Mountain Dew and then I switched to Diet Mountain Dew, which it was more chemicals. But I'm thinking, man, look what I did to my baby, while I was carrying her. Um, so very sad. By the time she was just a few months old, that's when I switched to keto. So she did have that from then on. And then my son, 5 years later, when, I planned his pregnancy, for him, was very, very diligent. And then he was nursed for 17 months, and then he went right on to Whole Foods. He didn't do any of the baby food, the little yogurt bite, he did none of that stuff. Um because I knew better than when I did when I first had my daughter. We didn't do the juicy juice with him either. We did that with my daughter because I had WIC, Women, Infant, and Children. It's a program that helps, but there just wasn't a lot of good options back then. So yes, Crystal, I agree. Yep. Yes. So both ketogenic and carnivore diets can help reverse obesity as a metabolic disease. The ketogenic diet is going to help by reducing carbohydrate intake. The body will shift to burning fat for fuel, lowering their insulin levels and promoting fat loss. It's also going to help regulate appetite, hormones, and reduce overeating. I was an overeater. 100%. I was one of those kids that could mindlessly, like once MTV came out in like 1984, 85, I was in trouble. That's really when that started for me, because it was like Doritos came out, it was like all this junk came out, and I could just sit there mindlessly and watch, music videos 4 or 5 hours during the summer, sitting on my arse, and I ended up paying for that. Carnivore diet can help by eliminating carbs entirely or as close to zero as possible. It can be even more effective for some as it reduces insulin spikes and promotes fat adaptation. The high protein and fat intake also help with satiety, so they're not as hungry, reducing overall calorie consumption. Um, and I know it's hard to do, but I think if you do a complete shift, a mindset shift with your children and lead by example and have that, I mean, and especially if they're little kids, you control what's in the house. You control the food and whether it's real food or if it is Franken food. So these are things that are definitely it's definitely preventable. So Julie says, Orange Crush, love that stuff. Then later, liters of Diet Coke. No wonder my gut is so messed up. Yeah, we did a number on our guts. And the crazy thing is I can remember drinking. I always liked the Diet Mountain Dew. My husband at the time was drinking, it was either Coca-Cola or Pepsi. I want to say it was a Coca-Cola. And we had a battery that we couldn't get the little terminals, we couldn't get the cables off of. because they were just, gummed up, and he poured Coca-Cola on them and it ate through that battery acid crap on top of there. And I was like, holy crap. If it can do that to that, what's it doing to the inside of us? And I was like, I ain't doing that anymore. And that was kind of about the time I started going, huh, this doesn't make sense. You can't put this stuff in your body and think you're going to get a good outcome, because you're just not going to. So, anyway, hopefully this was educational and I'm not being preachy, but I'm just like, we we need to do what we can for our children so that they can be as healthy as possible. Hi, Wick. Nice to see you on here. So I just think that there are things that we could do to help these children so that we can prevent these 100% preventable diseases that they are getting at such a young age, prior to their brains being developed, prior to their bones being set, prior to them going through, puberty. And we've added all this junk into their environment. And some of it has been subliminal. I mean, it's hidden in stuff that you wouldn't even expect. Um, Trying to think what we looked at the other day at the store. And the last time we looked at this packaging, it was okay. It was like, I wouldn't have eaten it, but my husband's like, yeah, it's not that bad. And it really wasn't horrible. And he picked it up. Wish I could remember what it was, because he didn't end up buying it, but it's completely different. And I mean, he bought it like 3 months ago. It wasn't the rice blend that he gets. Anyway, it was like 7 ingredients, and I have a chemistry degree, and I was like, "I do not know what the hell that is." I knew kind of just some, the synonym to it, and I was like, "Okay, the prefix is this, okay. So that's in this family and of chemicals." And then I was like, "Oh, that's a petroleum." And I was like, "Yum." I was like, "Why don't we save our time and go out and get the, lawnmower oil and just take a chug of that?" Which my husband just rolls his eyes at me. So, anyway, that's enough of me being preachy. So, next week I'm going to do a video on eczema and psoriasis. So, I'm going to go over causes, symptoms, and they can have similar causes, but they usually have different causes. So I'm going to go over that, and then I'm doing an interview Wednesday. I don't think it's not going to be live, with Brian Norwitz. And so I'm not sure when that will come out. I'm not sure when he'll be done editing that, but we're going to do that Wednesday. So, and then I'm going to get off of here because I have products to make. I It's just about time for all of my body soaps and the shampoos to be cured. They take 4 to 6 weeks. So I have to get those sacked up, ready to go out. And then I've made a couple new lotions for some people who have requested them. So, and actually the beard butter, I have to make more beard butter because the guys are really liking that. For their mustache and beard. So I need to get some more of that with the cedarwood scent. I love that scent. It's a very manly type scent. So anyway, I think that's all I have. If you have any questions, like I said, you can put them in the comments. If you like this, please hit the like button, share it. If there's somebody that you think, hey, maybe their child, is starting to show some of these symptoms, maybe we need to try to nicely intervene of like, hey, can we help do this? Can we help do that? So, oh, yay. Tara said her order came today and it wasn't melted, I hope, because I'm trying to get everything out and get to people without it being melted. So hopefully everything made it as it should be. So, but I'm going to finish doing that this evening. And then I think I'm going to go for a walk. It's really nice outside here. It's like 65 degrees. So I'm going to go out and see if I can get some allergies, right? So anyway, thank you guys. If you want to subscribe, that'd be great too. And I will plan on seeing you guys for sure tomorrow night with Russ. He's homesick Buckeye, and it's going to be we grilling, baby. And we do a lot of joking around. Actually, he does the joking around. He's a much funnier person. I'm more of a very scientific person, but Usually we can, and he's a singer. I can't sing. Nobody wants me to sing. So yeah. Uh, Perfect. Oh, good, Tara. That makes me feel good because I do have to switch up what I put in my products when it gets summertime. I do have to add a little bit of organic beeswax to some of the things just so that they don't melt quite as easily. So I'm glad they came. And Michelle Baker says, I love my shampoo bar. I am glad. I love making them. I've got so many different scents. And then I've got a big thing that should be done in the next week of no scent. I also have people that don't want any kind of scent, which is fine too. So, anyway, thank you guys for watching. And as I always say, meet, heat, eat, and repeat. See ya.